over. This is kind of a special edition. We have with us now. Let me backtrack a little bit, and we'll talk about this a little bit later. But we use vMix to do our switching, and today we have the daddy of vMix. Yep, vMix's founder and father. He's here with us, Martin Sinclair. He's in that middle box right there. He's in studio with us, and we're having a lot of fun having him here. And right next to him is cousin Tom. Tom Sinclair. You all know Tom Sinclair. He is the perpetrator of Streaming Idiots and a whole mess of other shows that he's doing. And he's also an inventor and a creator and all sorts of good stuff. Hey, Tom, how you doing?
Having a great day, Rick. Thanks. Good to see you again, Martin.
Good. Well, they both came back from NABS. I'm very jealous. I didn't get a chance to go this year. Next year, I promise. I promise. I really want to go. It looks like a lot of fun. And you guys had a good time there, it looks like. Recouping. Are we
ready? Rick, I'm not sure I've got Martin's audio.
Oh, test 1, 2, 3. Can you hear me, Tom?
Oh, there he is. Okay. He's
just haven't been speaking.
He's been quietly
listening. He's all
listening.
talked out after last week.
Yeah, no, he's probably wondering, where am I? Well, how did I get here? These people are scary.
What time of day is it? Yes.
It's early in Australia right now, so. Well, Jeff wanted to come, but it was 4 a.m, and he goes, I can't. I've got to go to work today, and I can't do it. He was miserable. He was absolutely miserable. But Tom jumped in, and he agreed to do it today, and we're very grateful for him. So thanks for being here, Tom.
How could I pass up an opportunity to hang out with two cool guys like you guys?
Yeah. But anyway, this will be good.
Make sure you don't focus on that TV.
Yeah, look on this. Yeah. Look this way. Yeah, I'll be looking towards Martin. If I look this way, I'm looking like, hey, where am I? Everything's inverted. So anyway, all right. So we're gonna start on this. We're gonna start on this shot. So let me just go through shots real quick. There you are. You are in the riding side saddle here. Here we go. And then we got this one. Good there. This will be both your shots. I think that's myself. This is you and me, Tom. Me by myself. And our 3-shot. I think we're good. All right, let's start on this one. So we are going to cue up the video. So we got the intro queued up. Yep. Let me check one thing real quick. Everybody hears that? I just want to make sure we could hear the audio, so we can.
It's reset.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we're good there. So we are going to start the show recording in 3, 2, and 1. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Tech Downover. Today we got a great show for you. And we've got with us a special co-host who is Tom Sinclair. You know him from other shows we've done in the past. Jeff couldn't make it today. He's probably hating life right now because he's either sleeping or whatever, but he could not make it. So we asked Tom if he could join us, and Tom did. Tom, how are you today?
Hey, Rick, doing great. Thanks so much for having me on as a guest co-host.
We are very glad you could make it. You're always fun to have on. And Tom's a good inventor. We'll talk about that too. I just bought one of his devices, the Bolt 4. Sounds cool, doesn't it? Bolt 4. Anyway, it's a 4-input camera, HDMI input. He has SDI too, but we got the HDMI one. Looking forward to getting that little baby. And let's start our intro and let's get going. We have a special guest. Well, Tom, I think we have someone who's probably somewhere down the road related to you.
Definitely. There are so many Sinclairs in the whole world, and they've all come from the same place.
Interesting. Scotland, right?
Scotland,
Scottish?
Exactly.
Yep.
Yes.
Interesting. Well, we've got with us Martin Sinclair. He is the founder of vMix, the initial programmer on the project, and done an amazing job with this tool. Well, let's bring him on. Martin, how are you today?
Hi, Rick. Hi, guys. Thanks for having me. I'm finally here. I think we've been talking about doing this interview for a few months now, and NAB's just finished, and I've gone back to LA and driven up to your studios, and it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, we're more than glad you could make it, and you're kind of a programming wonder. I've always been impressed with the work that you did and do on vMix, and the amount of work it is. It's not easy. You guys have done an incredible job putting this together. And for the record, we've used Wirecast for about 4 or 5 years. We had a TriCaster, which we sold. I didn't like it. And we've now been on vMix for about a year and a half. I like it. It's good. It really runs. And we're not saying that because he's here. We actually do like it. And Tom told me that he likes it too, right?
That's true. Absolutely. Absolutely. It is it is so fun to make it do what it does. It just it practically runs itself. It's amazing. It's amazing. And I'm sure Martin will tell you about how you can get a free trial at some point in the show today. I don't want to steal his thunder.
Well, you notice in our intro, Martin, that we have our little map of California and then one of Australia. We wanted to make you nostalgic with that one. So, but you're up in Queensland, Australia.
That's right. Gold Coast, Queensland, just south from Brisbane. It's an interesting town. The best similarity, I would say, is to somewhere like Orlando. You know, it's good weather most of the year. Orlando with beaches. We have theme parks. We have a big tourist area. So, yeah, it's I've been there most of my life, and it's great.
That does sound good. So tell us, what made you create vMix? And I normally don't ask 2 questions at once, but what made you create vMix, and where are you going with it?
Well, vMix came out of the idea of needing something I needed myself, you know. So back in my church, back around 2004, 2005, they're evaluating various options to do a live switching of the carols production. And back then, everything was still an SD and very expensive. An SD 4-channel switcher that we were looking at was around $25,000.
I know.
So that was a significant investment for the church. And doing multimedia, doing video switching and stuff was sort of a hobby of mine, something I was interested in for a long time. And I also happened to be a bit of a programmer. So totally not expecting to be able to make something that would actually work, I went and built the software just to play around, just to see what was possible on an ordinary PC. Back then we were using USB-based SD capture devices. I believe they were the precursors to what are called EasyCap, which Tom knows a lot about. Just these little cheap ways of bringing in multiple cameras into the computer. And I think 12 months later, vMix 1.0 was used for that Carol's show using 3 cameras, SD cameras via USB. And I just keep adding on features, and I guess the rest is history.
That's great.
Your second question, which I remembered, with these live shows, it's always a struggle to remember all the questions. But
so where are you taking this now?
Taking vMix. And that it's the same answer that I've had for years now. Since we've released it to the public, what I've been doing is listening to what customers want to do, how to make their lives easier doing their live show, how to make my life easier in the live shows I do, because I always strive to do live shows myself. So that I actually know what's happening in the industry and how to make the product the best it can be. And it's just really listening to customers. We have a very active forums, forums.vmix.com. There's a whole section there called feature requests, and we receive hundreds of feature requests a month, I would say, a whole lot of requests. So each time it comes up to a new version. Oh, vMix 18, what are we going to do? I go through that entire list and pick out the things that I think the most amount of customers are going to appreciate, and then we start working on the next release. So vMix 17 has been released now for a few weeks now, sort of to coincide with NAB, but we've been working on it now for over 6 months. So yeah, we're hoping to see how people react to 17. I hope they enjoy it, they get a lot out of it, and then probably in a few months' time we'll repeat that cycle again for the next version.
That's great. And it seems like every time you think you're about to hit, that's it, we can't go any further, more features come out and more things come out and technology changes. Now in this version of vMix, which is 17, you've included the NewTek NDI, the network device interface. What does that do for vMix?
So NDI is all about connecting live video and audio sources using an ordinary network. So you could consider it enabling your ordinary gigabit Ethernet network as a multi-point SDI router, or you could take a video source from one location and send it to another within your network and share it multiple systems. So a number of use cases for this are desktop capture. So vMix has had a remote desktop capture for a while for both Mac and PC. You run a little program on those computers and you're able to bring in the desktop into vMix. NDI enables that and makes it higher quality, higher frame rate due to the better compression as a part of the NDI standard. So we took advantage of NDI first to upgrade the desktop capture. So that was a very important feature. A lot of people have been asking us for a while to improve the compression of desktop capture. So that answered that customer request. But then also it opened up a whole world of connectivity. Now you can connect vMix to another copy of vMix. You can expand your studio from one man, one PC that Tom has been touting for a long time now, to one man, maybe two PCs, maybe three. And I know Tom has jumped on that a little bit and he's experimenting with multiple computers, because now you can separate parts of your production, you can dedicate one PC to one task, and that helps out a lot. The more complicated a production gets, it makes things easier. And so NDI is just all about sharing videos. No longer you don't need SDI cables. We're hoping in the future cameras will have built-in NDI support. So just with a network cable you could plug in a camera and bring the source in that way. And ultimately it's all about this move to IP that's in the broadcast industry. So previously, or now, SDI is what is used in broadcast. They're hoping to transition everything to IP, and NDI, I think, is the most effective, both in cost and ease of use, way of converting an SDI-based network or production into an IP-based video production. So it's all very cool.
That's really fascinating. We'll never get rid of IP. Everybody keeps saying one day we'll go past IP. I don't think anytime soon. It just works well. Tom, how have your experiments been going with the multiple computers and vMix?
Horribly, just absolutely terrible. Martin says that by making it complex you make it simpler. No, by making it complex you have more things that can possibly go wrong. At least it's a wonder I have any hair left. But seriously though, what I find is, and I live. I live kind of on the low level of society here. I'm not like you guys. I don't have the latest greatest toys. I try to use the common man toys. So the PCs that I'm working with in my studio when I'm putting this together are things that people might find in their spare room or in their office. That is, things that regular old folks have. My production PC is a second generation i7, and so. I'm kind of forcing myself into that mold, because that, for me, that's the real world. That's where a lot of folks are. Everybody doesn't have the latest, greatest 6th generation stuff. So what's going to work with vMix and NDI on less than optimum conditions? That's kind of what I'm experimenting with at this point. And I'm having some success. Well, I'm having all success, because every failure is a success, because it tells us something that doesn't work. And so we'll stay away from that. But gradually beginning to find, Martin's testing the upper limits of NDI. I'm testing the lower limits of NDI.
That's interesting. And, you make a good point, because we've spent a lot in this place trying to get a lot of fancy equipment and things. it kind of combines the worst of all our addictions. We're addicted to gear. It's bad. In fact, we had Corey Benoit on recently, who does a lot of video photo reviews, and he said we all suffer from gas. I was thinking, well, yeah, that could be, I guess. But he calls it gear acquisition syndrome. I go, that's so true. We want the better cameras, the this and that, but you don't need any of that. And I think that's what you prove very well on your shows, Tom, that anybody can do this, and you don't have to spend a fortune. You really don't. And you get almost equally good results, whether you do or not.
You can be an idiot and do it on a budget. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's beautiful.
And that's sort of been part of the motivation of building vMix in the first place. I built it for myself because I couldn't afford the expensive gear, and that's what I hope it helps for others as well. But I also like the idea of the latest technology, and if somebody wants to build a studio where they have a lot of money to throw at it, I also want them to get the best possible results there. So I sort of balance between wanting vMix accessible to the low-cost users, but also to have powerful features that help those at the very high-end expensive studios. And I've tried to get as much as I have control over NDI accessible to both of those as well. But one of the things that is important to note about NDI is it does have a lower limit of hardware. It requires processors that have a technology called SSE3, which is pretty much all processors in the last 5 years or so. But given the current pace of processor technology, people could have computers that still work really well that are before SSE3. So that's something to keep in mind for viewers out there that are considering, hey, they're on vMix 16 and they want to upgrade to 17. There may be some older laptops or older computers that won't work with the new NDI. I hope to get some kind of legacy support in NDI. NDI, as Rick alluded to, is built by NewTek. So I've been working closely with them. They're the ones that have built it. I'm sort of a beta tester for the last 6 months in NDI, giving them some feedback. And one of the piece of feedback I'm going to provide to them is maybe if we get a lot more of these users with older PCs that aren't able to use NDI, maybe we can add some backward compatibility. Won't run as fast, but it will hopefully work. So that's one piece of feedback we've had in the past few weeks. So I'm going to hopefully take that on board and see what we can do about that to make NDI even more accessible.
Now, how does it work on Apple's, for example, iMacs or Mac Minis, which people may be using also as separate machines, Skype machines, things like that?
Yeah, so there's a brand new desktop capture for the Mac that uses NDI. So there is part of the SDK of NewTek's NDI is Apple support.
Okay.
Fortunately, all Apple Macs that are on Intel, except for the very early 32-bit models, support NDI. So that's
great.
So that's a good thing. And one thing we added on top of that is audio support. So previously, desktop capture on Macs was just video in vMix. Now it has audio. So it'll default to the audio device set up on the Mac. So that might be the microphone or something. But if you want it to be Skype audio, you can download a tool called Soundflower. And they provide sort of a loopback audio tool for Macs so that you can select the Mac's audio as a microphone audio source. So one of the ways you can use that is if you wanted to use a Mac Mini as a Skype capture machine, you could use the new vMix desktop capture for NDI. You could use the Soundflower so it captures the audio of Skype, and then you could send audio and video over the network directly into vMix using NDI from a Mac Mini. As for getting video back into a Mac, there are some solutions for NDI in the pipeline to allow you to bring it into Skype, but currently they're Windows only. So for anybody out there using a Mac Mini as a Skype and wants to have bidirectional Skype support, it may be worth looking at Boot Camp.
Well, we're using the Mac Minis now. However, we're switching to ITX Windows machines. We're building little... We have one up here right now. That's just, it's got a little Antec case. It's not yay big. And the ITX boards are very small, and they do a great job. They're fast, and it's just more compatible. So we probably will take advantage of that real soon. We're going to build 2 more of these in the very near future, and then we'll have 3, not Mac Minis anymore. We'll have the ITX machines, which should actually probably even work better. That's what we're hoping for. And the silence is deafening. Tom, you there?
I'm here. Okay. No, I was just thinking about, being able to, what I found in testing the vMix 17, specifically the desktop capture vMix 17 with NDI, is that I think that works better than some of the NDI tools do. And I've been able to get that to run on some low-end hardware that NDI would not run on. And I think it's because whatever Martin has done, he's built it into vMix. And so vMix, those little smaller, older PCs will carry the water if the water is vMix, but they won't carry the water if the water is only NDI. It just fails to run. So I'm really excited for us low-end folks that vMix is going to be a great way to introduce NDI where NDI wouldn't run otherwise. So, hat tip to Martin on being able to do that. Good job.
Yeah. One thing I've always liked about vMix, one of the main things when I first looked at it, was the UI. In a world of gray, unreadable, light blue on white, gray on gray, this is a very readable UI. And having been a UI designer for a long time, I'm like, can't anybody design anymore? This is great. This is very readable. You've done a great job on that. These old eyes are very happy with what you've done. And there's just a lot of nice little things. Actually, Tom showed us a trick the other day that I didn't know, because I was saying it's a little tedious to bring graphics and video into, vMix when you have more than one. You want to bring in like 10. He goes, just drag and drop the whole directory in. That's it, huh? Yep, that was easy. So thank you on that one, Tom.
Well, you don't have to thank me. You really need to thank Martin, because we were out at NAB last week and he was helping me set up my show, and he was doing that. I was looking over his shoulder and I was like, oh, you can do that? Oh, wow, cool. So now I get to tell you and, pretend like I've known it for a long time.
I was impressed. I was totally impressed. I'm still impressed. Hey, you knew to tell me, though. That's good. That's all that counts. Tom's humble, but hey, it was him. He got it.
And here's the funny thing. I mean, I've been working on vMix now for almost a decade. The first public release was 2009, but I was working on it for my own use since 2005. Okay, over a decade, I guess now. It's 2016. It's amazing to think. But there's a whole lot of features that have gone into vMix that I've forgotten about myself. And it's funny, at these trade shows, like NAB last week, somebody will come by and they'll ask me a question about a feature, and I'm like, I'm not sure that vMix can do that yet. I'll keep that in mind. And they're like, no, here it is. And they point and click, and they point out this feature that was probably built 5 or 6 years ago and I completely forgot about. So it is possible for others to be better experts of vMix than me. So, Tom probably knows a couple of things I don't know about, just because of, I guess, the different aspects of production he focuses on versus what I don't do day to day. So, don't sell yourself short, Tom. I'm sure there are a couple little tips and tricks you have that I forgot were even there.
Well, I can tell you a lot of things that I've done that don't work. But the show's not long enough for that.
Back on. One thing that's very good about vMix, it's very easy to get shows up and running. And it's also complex enough that if you want more capabilities, they're there. And I think that's one of the tributes to what you've done. You can make a show hard. You can make it simple. There's a lot of capabilities within vMix. And every time we're kind of stuck, we play around with it a bit. And we usually figure out, oh, that wasn't that hard. So it's definitely a good tool. Now, you guys were at NAB. We have a little video of both of you at NAB. Can you mind if we show it now?
Sure.
Here we go. Show that one.
I'm going to turn this part over the show to Martin and let Martin tell you about the vMix U.
Yeah, and
can we
it's
zoom
right
in
here
on this a little
on
bit?
a
Let's
stage.
see.
In fact, one of the things I've always really wanted to build, just the hardware I've wanted to use myself, is a 1U production switcher that is fully featured. I mean, you can get some switches out there that are in 1U form factor like this, but they just do switching. You know, they've got no video, they've got no streaming, they've got just the switcher, just a switch box. Maybe they can do some graphics, but this is a fully featured rack mount production system with the full power of vMix. And you can see at the back there, you got the SDI ports over here. It's got 4 SDI ports, and then it has the standard PC connectors here on the back. So you've got Wi-Fi, you've got gigabit Ethernet for NDI purposes, you've got USB, you've got 2 HDMI ports, and a DVI port for up to 3 different monitors. So it's quite really light as well. It's compact, it's great to install in a rack mount installation and a satellite truck, OB van, things like that. So a 1U rack mount system, it's called the vMix U. It's released at this show. We're taking pre-orders now through resellers within the US. So this is currently available for pre-order within the United States. We're going to be looking at, in the future, how we can get these out to the rest of the world. So the price is $6,995 for a complete 1U unit. Has NDI, has PTZ support, has 1-channel instant replay, 4 SDI. So yeah, it should be really popular.
Amazing. Amazing. And look how small it is.
Yeah, and one thing as well, in the 1U form factor, is we've managed to put into this size 2 hot swap SSD drive bays. So back in the day, you might have a really big rack mount server and you install these full-sized hard drives into it to get your storage. Well, with SSDs now, you have 2 of them, so I can just open them up like so. Really easy to plug and play storage. So you could use vMix if you didn't want to use it as your master switcher, but you want to use it for video playout, or maybe you wanted to use it for a video recording device. You just plug this into your existing workflow, plug in the SDI cord, and suddenly you've got access to all of the features in vMix.
That's cool. That actually looks really cool. And you started shipping that?
Not yet. So about mid-May, we'll start shipping those to customers. But yeah, you saw right there, Tom and I, that was on Tom's very special edition of Streaming Idiots, where he did it live from our booth. It was the first time we did live streaming in the booth, and logistically things at NAB are somewhat a challenge. One of our lights kept dying, it just kept exploding. We would replace it and it would explode again. So if you saw the chroma key to the side, there was a bit of black at the corner there. It wasn't because we couldn't be bothered to set up a light, it's because it literally caught fire. So yeah, but it was fun though. Doing a live stream right there from the floor was fun, and you know, thanks to Tom for dropping by and doing his show. It was great.
And I was watching Tom at the show, and he's a pro. He was going all over the place, talking to people, being interviewed. You've become a celebrity, Tom.
Well, you know, it's really funny. People will call and they'll want to talk to me, and I want to talk, but they're almost like, hush, we already know everything you have to say. We want to tell you something you don't already know. So it's a unique experience, for sure, indeed.
That's great. Well, you know, one of the things that is fun about NAB is that, and I haven't been there, but I've seen it, and I know a lot of people have been there. There's a lot of unexpected things that can happen at a show that just, especially of that magnitude, it's enormous. I think it's 110,000 people were there. So that's
yeah, it's the 4th year for us at NAB, and we've gone from a tiny little 10 by 10 booth at the very back of the hall to a moderate-sized booth. The size of some of the companies' booths there is astounding. If people go to NAB for, you know, if they want one reason to go, just see the biggest companies and how much, I guess, time and money they spend on these huge booths. If there were any doubt that NAB is the key broadcast venue of the year. Just check out the size of the Blackmagic design booth.
Oh, yeah.
We had a pretty big booth. We had room for a theater, but then you walk past Blackmagic, like, wow.
Interesting.
I could fit 20 vMixes in their space.
I mean,
so.
and the drone booths. I saw helicopters in these things, full helicopters.
That's right, yeah.
It's mind-boggling.
Yeah, giant production trucks just sitting there in the hallways, yeah, helicopters. It's amazing.
It just looks like a lot of fun every which way. Now, how was people's reaction to vMix? Now, you've gone 4 years. Have you noticed a change in people going, vMix? Oh, yeah, we know who you are. Because I hear vMix said a lot more now. People are starting to talk about it a lot.
Yeah, it's really amazing to see. It's funny, actually. The first year we were there, people come by the booth and they think, oh, so you guys do virtual sets or something. Oh, you're a virtual studio company. Because we had the green screen set up and we were demoing that. And so that's the first thing we'd ask. Or they'd ask, so what's vMix all about? And then the second year, it's like 50-50. Some people knew what vMix was. Some were like, what is it about? Are you a virtual sets company? Now everybody comes by, oh, I know what vMix is all about. What's new? And that's really, that's exciting for me to see that growth. I've always wanted to have vMix out there so everybody knows it, because I think it's a great lower cost option to a lot of the more expensive gear out there, but it doesn't help people if they don't know about it. So the whole reason we go to NAB is to raise awareness of vMix. So the more and more people know about this product, and it's just really exciting for me to see that it's after only 4 years, now everybody seems to know what vMix is about.
And you've got products like the vMix U. You've also got the vMix Go. That's another solution that it's not rack mounted, but it's a very portable, complete studio. Tell us a little bit about that one.
Yeah, so the vMix Go, again, it's sort of part of vMix's philosophy, is it came out of my own need. 3 years ago now, we were offered the opportunity to produce the Teradek live show. For those that don't know, they do 4 days of non-stop live streaming coverage. They get interviews, they do educational segments, things like that from their booth. This giant plastic cube that's very iconic at the NAB show. And they asked us, can we provide the equipment to produce it? Nice. So I created a prototype of a portable system, had a built-in screen, it used a bunch of capture cards. It was sort of very much a prototype for those that saw it. There were cables hanging everywhere. So that was year one, and that was a success. And so we took that and thought, how can we make that an actual product? Surely it's not just us that needs something like this. Customers need a portable unit. And that was vMix Go the next year. 8 SDI inputs, built-in HD screen. It has drive bays to install SSD drives. Everything we needed to do a 4-day non-stop live production for Teradek, now we made available for customers. And so the vMix Go has served us well. We use it for our own monthly live stream back in Australia. We used it for the live production at the NAB booth ourselves. So we take full advantage of the vMix Go, and now others can as well. And the vMix U is sort of like that. The vMix Go is one with a built-in screen. That there were customers that just wanted something even smaller form factor. They wanted vMix as just a plug-in to add in, say, graphics or videos and features into the production. So the vMix U is, again, just based on customer feedback, the sort of products customers want to see, we try to build. So yeah, it's been great.
Now, we've talked a little bit about what customers want. What do you want out of vMix in the future? What are you seeing as something that you kind of want to do that nobody, if you can talk about it at this point?
Yeah, it's funny. The answer I'll tell you now, and I'll explain why. It's NDI, because it's funny. At NAB last year, a lot of customers were talking about IP connectivity. How can we connect vMix to vMix? How can we get better desktop capture? And I started floating around the idea of something I like to call vMix Connect. The idea of what vMix Connect could do is exactly what NewTek announced with NDI in September. So I was like, great, I don't have to work on that anymore. They could just provide the plugin and I can just work on all the other stuff to make it a good experience in vMix. So NDI is the feature I wanted last year. I see the future as IP connectivity for all cameras.
Yeah.
In the future, broadcast cameras will connect via a network cable. I like that idea because it fits the vMix software philosophy well. You don't have to build a PC in the future and install capture cards into it. You could just get a laptop and a network port, and suddenly you can access an unlimited number of cameras on the network. So that's what I hope to see a few years from now. NDI is the technology. Now we're sort of just waiting for camera manufacturers, to catch up and implement it as well. So,
Have any of those started doing that yet?
there is a camera back device by another Australian company, funnily enough, called Bird Dog, a bit of a interesting name, but Bird Dog have announced a prototype which has HDMI and SDI inputs. You put it in the back of the camera and it has a network port for NDI.
Nice.
So that is a bridge. That converts all existing cameras into an NDI source. But hopefully in the future, camera manufacturers themselves will implement built-in support. I haven't heard anything from NAB about it just yet, but I'm sure as NDI becomes more widely adopted, those cameras will come out as well. My hope is something like like what you've got here, the Canon XA25.
Yes.
Something at that form factor that just has a network port in the back would be great.
That would be really cool. And these cameras, we've been using these for about a little over 2 years, and they've been great. They're very good cameras. But you're right, and you're paying a lot more just for that SDI interface. It's an extra grand. I think these were about, I think they were close to 3,000 when we got them, 2,600, 2,700. Or if you get the one without the SDI, you're about 1,700, 1,800. It's a big difference. And it's really that connector, not much else.
Yeah, and so network NDI technology can be low cost. I've seen the hardware involved in making it work, and it's not that powerful. So they could take advantage of the chips in there that are already using for compression and recording with a few tweaks to implement NDI. So yeah, it'd be very cool to see what camera manufacturers come out with over the next couple
So
of
in
years.
essence, right now, Blackmagic is probably squirming, going, what do we do with our capture cards? What will people do? They won't really need the capture cards anymore at that point.
Yeah, I see it's not immediate. So capture cards probably have a long life ahead of them for a whole variety of applications.
Sure.
But IP is going to be the eventual future. I believe that very strongly. And so I believe there will be a day where network will be ubiquitous for production technology, and capture cards will have very niche applications. But there are a lot of people out there at NAB that have been talking about NDI and saying, oh, it's 12 months away. NDI is going to be the technology that's going to take over. I'm sort of like, NDI has a lot of powerful applications. Desktop capture, connecting vMix systems together. These are all things people can use today. As for completely replacing the production workflow, I would probably say, the same sort of progression as SD to HD is probably the same for HD and 4K to IP based production. But I wish it was tomorrow. I wish you could just buy cameras tomorrow. I personally would move to an entire NDI workflow tomorrow if I could.
Oh, I think that would be great. I agree. That would be really cool. Now, one of the things that is, I guess, happening. Oh, how should I phrase this? I don't know. I had a moment. I forgot what my question was. I'm thinking of 14 things at once right now, going NDI this and then, and I got lost in there. Anyway, Tom, of all the things that you saw at NAB, and especially relating to what you do, what's one of the things you want to do? You're looking forward to doing with video, with vMix, and things like that.
Well, I am just stoked about the feature that Martin put into vMix that allows vMix to control PTZ cameras, to basically set up 10, 15, 20 different presets and have a camera virtually control itself from within vMix. The applications for that feature alone are gonna explode. I think vMix in the church market, where people can take a PTZ cam and put it very inconspicuously in a place in the church, and then from a back room even be able to control it so that it has the smallest amount of interference with the worship as possibly could. I mean, can you imagine a big camera with a camera person standing behind it? That's going to be pretty intimidating. But suddenly this little small camera that just sits there and does beautiful video and is controlled. In fact, I was talking with the PTZ Optics guys this morning about their new camera coming out, and Rick, this is a subject for another show, but the camera basically, if it attaches to your face, it tracks your face no matter where your face goes.
Interesting.
And so things like that are going to be perfect for the worship environment. A lot of my customers at Eastern Shore Broadcasting, the folks that we build custom PCs for, are in the worship environment, and so this is just going to make that offering that much stronger. It's a perfect solution to that problem of having a very conspicuous cameraman in a worshipful environment. In worship, you're supposed to be giving your worship, not worried about who's watching you or whether somebody's got the camera on you. And having a little teeny camera will make all the difference. And Martin has enabled that to happen by putting PTZ control into vMix 17. Big thumbs up for me on that one.
Yeah, and PTZ was a feature I've been wanting to do for a long time. It's one of those things I wanted to see 10 years ago in my own church, to have PTZ cameras and be able to control them. But it was all back then serial control, and I thought that was too complicated. So in the last couple of years, there have been cameras that have network control, and Tom talked about PTZ Optics. They just have a network port for control. They also have serial as well, but they have network control, and that was, I guess, the enabling feature in the hardware that made me think, yes, now I can make easy-to-use PTZ in vMix. So yeah, as it was... It was also based on user feedback as well. Everybody's been asking for years about PTZ. I just couldn't work out a way to make it as easy as possible with all the serial stuff. So it was sort of where customer feedback and hardware capabilities collided and created this opportunity to do PTZ.
Now, have you, Tom, I know you do a lot of things with sports, or you have in the past. Have you ever done anything where you can wirelessly send any kind of video signals to vMix or anything like that?
Oh, yes, sure. Lots of different devices will allow you to take a camera and or audio and send it from the field to the production room. Yeah, we've been doing that a lot for years. But not to leave PTZs for just a second. It's so easy to use. Mm-hmm. I can use it. I was successful in getting it to work the first time. And that's, again, another hat tip to Martin for making it so that the common... I mean, Rick, you and I are not of the tech generation. I don't know about you, but I grew up with black and white TV.
Oh, I did too. I'm probably older than you
are.
The
remote control was my younger brother. I'd send him across the room to change the channel.
Sneakernet.
And so... this whole technology thing is not second nature to me the way it is to my children and grandchildren. And to have Martin implement these really high-tech features in a way that really is easy for me to use, again, major thumbs up, major thumbs up.
That's pretty good. No, actually, it's funny. I'll date myself. I started my first programming class in 1972. So that was the first year of college. And I was a techie. I like programming. I discovered programming and never looked back. But you're right, black and white TVs. Yeah, we had them. My dad would say, "Why do you need color?" Color wasn't even out yet. But when it came out, he resisted for 10 years. It's like, do you want to buy color TV? No. All right. So it's kind of interesting. But no, this is a great time to be alive when it comes to tech. There's so much fun stuff going on that it's hard not to have a good time with this. And this is a field, Martin, where you never run out of ideas. There's always something you can do.
Yeah, well, at this stage, post NAB, I've run out of ideas, I think, for now. And it's always like that after the show. I just see the potential of NDI. It filled so many gaps in features people have been asking for a longest time. But sure enough, without fail, like clockwork, a few months afterwards, some new ideas come by. But they're not in my head yet, but I'm sure they will be, like they have been.
Aside from NDI, what major thing or trend did you notice at NAB, things people were talking about?
So everybody at NAB is talking about virtual reality. So virtual reality in the film context, and I'm unsure about that. What is a VR film going to look like? It requires a whole new way of directing, and that was sort of the focus of broadcast, all these sort of VR technologies. And Teradek, as I mentioned, did a live show, and they produced that using vMix. They used the vMix Go, but they also had their new VR 360 rig. That's 4 GoPro cameras on the top of it, and it streams a round image of 4 cameras stitched together live. And they had that through YouTube, where somebody could see the stage and see the live show and look around and see what was happening around the guests and the other side, see the cameras, see the lights, sort of a behind the scenes look at the show. But I think, it's hard to say. VR was huge at NAB. It's hard to say how it's going to make its impact, what movies are going to look like, what's the content going to look like. VR makes sense for gaming. One of my friends and employees back in Australia, Tim, another Tim, just bought the HTC Vive. He got it. He was one of the first to get it, and he got it the day before we all left to America. So I think instead of doing a work for us while we were away, he was just playing on the Vive. But I've played around with the Oculus before that, and it's just gaming and VR. I just can imagine so many games that I played, back in my youth that with VR would make the gaming experience so much better. So I understand VR is huge for gaming. So it's interesting to see it at NAB, which is purely a broadcast-focused industry, also talking about VR. And that's the question mark for me. What is VR going to look like for entertainment versus gaming? So
that will be different. Now, have you seen a lot? They talked about this about a year ago. Haven't really seen too much yet. The HoloLens, the Microsoft's HoloLens technology, and where that could go into live broadcasting or anything else. Any ideas on that?
Yeah, and so that was the other buzzword at the show, AR, or augmented reality.
Yes.
So where VR is creating a totally 100% 3D simulated environment in gaming, AR is where you see the real world and you see digital items. So for those who don't know about the HoloLens, they had like a Minecraft simulation where on your desk you could assemble things in Minecraft in the real world, and it had these goggles that implemented over the top of that. And I have a friend in engineering in Australia who really wanted to get their hands on a HoloLens for engineering because they thought it'd be really easy to build and look at 3D objects with a real world reference. So I see that is pretty cool, but I'm curious to see what's the price of the HoloLens when they're going to sell it, because the technology is so bleeding edge, far more than VR from what I've seen, that it can't be cheap.
Yeah, I thought the software was something like $400 to use it, but I don't know what the lens was. That'd be interesting.
I'd just like it if Martin could find a way for me to import some of my games that I want to play into vMix. I mean, if there were something that would allow me to import a web browser, for example, something like that would be a great idea.
Tom is asking leading questions right now because he's talking about two features. Desktop Capture now supports games on Windows 8 or a higher PC. So you can have a laptop or a PC running a game and capture it at full quality audio and video. And we demoed that on one of our live shows. We were playing Rocket League and bringing that in. So that was the gaming feature. And Tom also mentions the unexpected surprise hit of the NAB show for vMix is web browser input support. The ability to add web pages directly into vMix 17 and to scroll them and even play YouTube videos with audio. I added that in as an afterthought, and for those that are interested about the thinking behind the web browser input, check out Tom's Streaming Idiots episode from the NAB show where I talk about it in a bit more depth. But yeah, it excited a lot of people and everybody wanted to try it out, and so that was unexpected. It was not going to be one of the new features in 17. I sort of snuck it in there at the last minute.
That actually sounds like a really good one. I'm looking forward to seeing that one because it makes, rather than taking screenshots and videos, you could just have it live right there. Bring it up when you need it.
Yeah.
That'd be good. That'd be really good. What, just out of curiosity, this is one of those, it's not a leading question, but when people first get into vMix, what do they find the hardest?
I guess the terminology is a little bit to wrap people's heads around. There's so many features in vMix and so many things to understand, to do advanced things. You could do a basic production with a couple of clicks in vMix, but very quickly people think, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to set up my show like CNBC and have two things on the screen at once and overlays and graphics. So I think vMix opens up so many possibilities to beginners that's where they can get caught out by understanding a whole lot of broadcast, technical concepts really quickly. And I guess you talked about it briefly in the show. It's sort of the story of my life in vMix, how to make it both easy and extremely powerful. As you will know with UI design, that is a huge challenge.
Mm-hmm.
You can make something really easy by having less buttons, but with less buttons becomes less features. So I'm always trying to work out a way to make it easy, but also powerful. And I hope I've gotten a good balance there.
I think you've done a really good job on that. The only thing I would recommend is on the dialog boxes when you're, let's say, for example, bringing in videos or something, bigger font. That's all. Just a little bit bigger.
Okay.
It's a little small. Especially on a high-resolution monitor, it's like, I've learned to zoom in. I go, and I can see it fine. But no, I'd say on the whole, it's pretty easy. I mean, you're looking at a shot like this. This is 3 camera inputs all into one. Takes a couple of minutes to do. We've got a background graphic. We've got the transparent areas where we are, and you can make a shot look pretty nice and professional without a lot of work. For example, this is just an input of Tom. That's Tom's camera. That's what we're getting from Skype. And then same with you. You're in-house here, and that's just one of the XA25s on you, with one light on you, and it's pretty easy to set up shots. We had to redo the studio a bit when you came in. It took us probably about an hour. About an hour to redo everything. And that's really just physically redoing things because we have TVs in here and everything else. It wasn't that hard. I mean, with vMix, we could do this very easily. Things like this, I remember when we had other systems, weren't that. They took a little bit more time. They were definitely a little more tedious and more error prone. There were things that could go wrong more easily. We find with this, we've complicated our existence. If we use strictly vMix, it'd be a lot easier because we have a whole audio bank here. We've done things that are a little bit different. You don't have to do. So we like to complicate our lives, actually. I need to hang out with Tom more and make my life a lot easier because we do complicate our lives a little bit. We like it. It's kind of fun, but you don't need to.
Yeah, and it comes down to a lot of the flexibility built into there in vMix. So many different ways. Like I'm seeing here, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're activating the titles with triggers rather than as a multi-view layer. So there's multiple different ways depending on whether you want transitions, So once you become fluent with vMix, there's a whole lot of different ways of doing things. So that, I guess, that was the main challenge is.
Oh yeah, for example, we have like a shot like this, which isn't complete. We don't have it right. But if we wanted to, we could just zoom in on this. So we're just doing this with our little controller. Hi, Tom. How you doing? Now let's go back over here.
Wow.
And we're back. So that's just done with the controller, doing the zoom that's built into vMix. We just don't have you in that shot because we didn't do that. And if I try doing it in this shot, you're going to see something ugly. I'm going to do this, and it's going to throw us into another shot. So that didn't work too well. Let's go back here. But that's really cool. So you could do effects that you can't really do with any of the other software without paying $20,000, $30,000 on some of that stuff. So this is pretty cool.
Yeah, we have a big reseller and customer, in fact, that's using a vMix Go with, at last count, 130 inputs.
130?
So it's for a big customer that's producing a CNBC type show. So they've got all sorts of double boxes and graphics and stuff. And when they emailed saying 130 inputs, I thought, oh.
Is it working well?
It is working, but I was amazed that you could actually do that with 100.
It's a lot of inputs.
And 30 inputs. I'm sure there are ways they could cut that down, consolidate a bit if they put their mind to it. But it was pretty amazing to see them doing a production at that level.
What do we have? We've got probably about 20 something. 29. We've got 29. And we use a lot of them. And in fact, in the last version of vMix, you added control for these beautiful little devices.
Yeah.
So we're controlling the show from this Novation launch. I think it's a launch pad, launch control, something like that. It's real easy to set this up. Clark set it up here in probably about an hour. He had it going. It wasn't hard. And you give people already a set way to use it, and we just changed it. It's easy to just modify it any which way you want. So we can start our show recordings, our streaming, our output to TVs with just a couple of buttons. 3 buttons, we can control the whole show. And then we've got audio input control. It's fun. It's actually a lot of fun.
And customers deserve full credit for the MIDI feature because they've been saying, give us MIDI support for years and years and years. And I never got around to doing it, but finally it's in there. So, that's totally customer feedback right there. I can't take credit for that.
It's great. Well, they did a good job, and I'm glad you listened because that's really useful.
Well, not only did Martin listen, but he took it to the next level, and little things that just make vMix a joy to use. And we'll talk about the MIDI control and talking about setting up shortcuts, because that's what you're talking about, having a separate device that you can use to control vMix automatically. But to set that up, there's a feature in there. If you don't know your device and you don't know what a key is called, Martin's put something in there called Find a Key. And so if you press the key, it'll tell vMix what the control is to use. It's so simple, but from a user's perspective, it makes it that much easier to use. I'm sure it would still function the same way if I had to search through all the different possible keys on a device. But to have that one little way of making a shortcut, of making my life easier, and a change, one of my favorite changes in vMix 17, and Martin will probably allow folks to have a free trial edition of vMix 17. If you go to vmix.com, he might have something up there for you. But if you get vMix 17 and you open the interface, you'll see that there's a series of little buttons, little colored buttons kind of midway through the screen on the left-hand side, and those are levels where you can park your inputs. Well, in the past, they used to go down the side. Now they kind of go across the side, and they're labelable. Is that even a word? Labelable? Anyway, you can put labels on.
That's trademark.
That is a word, yeah.
Thank you. Good. It just didn't come off my tongue very smoothly. If I were a good broadcaster, I'd be able to do that.
Labelable.
But now you can put labels on them. So I'm looking at mine now, and it says things like main show and graphics and videos and pre-show. And it was just a little thing. Martin said he had to steal pixels here and there in order to squish it in. But it may have been a lot of work for him, but it sure makes my life so much easier, and I appreciate the program so much more because he's done. It's not. He brought me meat and potatoes, but he also brought me a nice salad and a good dessert and a great cup of coffee and all the other things that go with the meat and potatoes to make them special.
That's what it's all about too. Little things. It's those little touches that all make a difference. I call it, it's almost like a personal touch. it's more than just, that you got to go through, okay, it's on a list. Eventually somebody will look at it or not. And then nobody cares. No, I always get the feeling whenever I've sent support notices to you, Martin, I get a pretty quick response, even at all hours of the day and nights, meaning you don't sleep much. You need to sleep more. It's good for your health. But it's amazing. And I've never had a lack of support. And no matter how stupid the questions are, there's always good support from you guys, and that's very appreciated. Well, Martin, we've been on for over an hour, I think.
Yeah.
So I think we better give you a rest, and I know we want to get you back on the freeway before you hit traffic. He's near Los Angeles now, which is not good for traffic. Tom, always a pleasure seeing you. I'm glad you can make it.
And I don't want to steal Martin's thunder. Well, actually, I do, but I don't want to be known as somebody who steals Martin's thunder. But Martin and Tim do a live show from Australia once a month. And it can happen at any time during the month. You never really know when it's going to happen. And it can happen at any time during the day. I got up at 4 o'clock in the morning one morning to watch one because I just had to see. And that's when they introduced NDI. It was so cool. Mm-hmm. So coming up in May will be another opportunity for the vMix live show. And Martin, have you set a date for that yet?
Well, I'll be on the East Coast of the US throughout May. So we'll see what happens. We want to do a show in May. We'll see if the internet is up to the task. Tim will be back in Australia. I will be in the US. Finding a time zone that works for both of us as well is tricky. I mean, Tom announced our erratic schedule in the nicest possible way. Thanks, Tom. You made it almost sound like a feature. The show could appear at any time of the month. Like that's something people are excited about. But yeah, if we had a fixed time of the month and a day, that would probably be good. That'd be a good way to do it. But it's sort of in between of all of our development schedule.
And it is a fun show. It is fun. I've enjoyed them.
That's right. It's called the Fun Time Live Show. We try to make it lighthearted and, so that we don't have a lot of requirements on us as being professional broadcasters.
You just have to keep an eye on Tim, because every time you give him a toy, he's like, oh, and he starts clicking. So you got to watch him a little bit. He's a little out of control, but you can do that.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's fun.
In fact, I didn't recognize Tim on one of the shows. Wait a minute, what happened to the beard? He changed. He's different.
Yeah, he calls we called him Jim because people thought it was a separate person.
I didn't recognize him. Totally different.
Yeah.
He had his hair combed back and a beard's going to go, who's this guy? Sounds sort of like Tim, but doesn't look like him anymore.
Yeah, so full credit where credit's due. The vMix Funtime Live show was all Tim's brainchild. He came up with the concept and he wanted to do a monthly show. We built a whole studio from scratch and last year, because we were always assembling the studio. Each time we had an interview or something, we were building it up because we have a small office. But now we've got the space. We've got this dedicated space, much to the annoyance of the rest of our employees that are now got even smaller cubicles. But I think it's worth it and it has been fun, yeah.
That's great. Well, Martin, really glad you could make it here. I'm glad we got to finally meet in person. I've told you in emails many times, we love the program, we love the work you guys do, and it's a testament to very good programming. I always said you're a great programmer, so kudos to you. And Tom, man, you're a smart idiot. And I say that jokingly because he has a show called Streaming Idiots, but you're one smart guy. You do good work. And I'm so glad you could make it on today.
Thank you. Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here, indeed.
Yeah, thanks, guys. It's been great to be here.
Yeah, and if you're watching the show on YouTube, this is our live show. You want to watch a recording, you can watch it on Vimeo at vimeo.com/channels/techdownover. We'll have links later on to this show. The live show will be up on YouTube, and so will the recording on Vimeo. So have a good one, everyone. We'll see you soon. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.